So a lot of you have been asking me to send you my recipes for some of the things I've been uploading the past couple of days. Tonight I'm making an apple cobbler. I have a lot of extra apples in my fridge, so I wanted to get rid of them. So instead of sending everyone the recipes, I figured I'll just make a little video. And if you like my videos, I'll just do this until we all go back to normal life. So how I start is I always use green apples to make my apple cobbler. I've already washed these, but I'll show you how I wash my apples. I always have a special little brush that I use for all my vegetables and fruits. So I run the water, and you just kind of lightly just squeeze gently the apple, and you just scrub the apple or the fruit or whatever you're washing in like circular motions, because you don't know who's touched these obviously before buying them. If you really want to get fancy, you can dip this in lemon juice and clean it that way. I would recommend doing that if you're going to eat the skin, but we're going to peel the skin off anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So for tonight, I'm only going to use 4 apples because I'm making a small portion. It's just for me and my husband. So this is how I cut my apples. I do 4 big chunks. It doesn't really matter how you cut. It doesn't have to be like a perfect size. No one's really looking at the apple on the inside. It's gonna all get cooked off. So some are a little smaller, some are a little bigger than others. It's not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. And if you cut a little too deep and you see like the core here, that's okay. You could just cut around that. So I have like a little bag, like a little garbage basket here that I just throw it instead of walking over to my garbage. And then I just throw that bag out after. Okay. So how I just do it, I just slightly just chop. And then you make like kind of 1/2-inch wedges. About 2 inches this way, and then about a couple of centimeters deep. Okay, so I cut a little bit of the core, which is okay. I'm just gonna work around it. Green apples are nice to use too in apple cobbler or apple pie because they don't get so mushy as if you were using like a red apple or a yellow apple. And then they become sweet also when you use sugar and your cinnamon. I like to use lots of cinnamon. What's nice about apple cobblers is you eat them warm, and if you have ice cream, you can put like a nice scoop of ice cream on top. Today I'm actually going to be making a vegan cobbler, so there won't be any dairy or any eggs or milk or butter. I'm going to be using margarine, so this will be completely dairy-free and vegan. So for now, let's season the apples. So I cut all the apples. And now I'm gonna sweeten them up. So I have here some brown sugar and some regular sugar. I'm gonna take about 1/2 cup of regular sugar. So this is about 1/2 cup. And I'm gonna put it right on my apples. And then I'm gonna take a little less than 1/2 cup. So maybe like 1/3, and just press it down and put them in the apples. Okay. gonna take some cinnamon. And I like to do a tablespoon. Which is a nice generous amount of cinnamon, especially for 4 apples. And then I'm gonna take a pinch of salt. So, one salt I love is this one. It has like a wet type of consistency. It's like very pure, organic, natural salt. So just a pinch. And then I'm gonna take actually some cornstarch. This is what's gonna help the apples not glue together. And it's gonna make it like a nice syrupy consistency so it won't be pouring out when you cut it open. So about a teaspoon or a heaping teaspoon. And then you just sprinkle the cornstarch. Okay. So now I'm gonna just mix this all together. Until you don't see any more of the cinnamon sugar combination, and you just have nice coating on the apples. It smells so good. And then the apples have like a nice white color, but now they have like a brown cinnamon color. So I'm just gonna leave this to the side because now we're gonna make our dough. So to make the dough, it's very easy. Normally I don't really use measuring tools, but I'm gonna do the best I can. So I guess we'll start with a cup of flour. So since it's a cobbler, I'm only gonna use the top for coating, for like the crumb. So we start with 1 cup of flour, and then I use baking powder because baking powder what it does is it gives it nice like a fluffiness. I'm gonna use a teaspoon of the baking powder. Oh, I forgot to preheat my oven. So I'm going to preheat my oven. To 375. Okay. And I'm going to take a stick of margarine. Now this is warm, so it's been out of the fridge for about like 15 minutes already. So I wouldn't really recommend using cold butter or margarine. Like maybe get it to room temperature. It makes a big difference when you bake actually, when you use room temperature butter rather than butter straight out of the fridge. When you use cold butter, a lot of times I've noticed that it'll actually harden your cookies or whatever you're making, so room temperature is always key. And also room temperature eggs, when you're using eggs, that helps a lot. So right now we have the butter, the flour, and the baking powder. And I'm just gonna mix this with the stick. I'm gonna blend it, because you wanna just incorporate everything. If you melt the butter, you could do that too. It just, sometimes what will happen, your pie or whatever will come out will be very, very hard after if you leave it out. So you definitely want to use like room temperature butter. So you just kind of work it to make like a dough with the butter. And just so there's no more flour. So butter, when you're using butter, has more of like a sweet texture. Margarine's not very sweet. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna actually take a little bit of sugar, just a little bit, because I'm using margarine. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of sugar, just so the crumb has a little bit of a sweetness. Also, sugar gives it a nice color when you're baking, even when you're making like homemade dough or anything. Just a little touch of sugar will give a nice texture and consistency. So I'm looking here and I have like a paste. I don't really want that. I want it to be more crummy. So I'm actually gonna add a little bit more flour. Like I said, I don't really have perfect measuring because I do a lot of my cooking by hand. But you get the idea. So now it's coming out a little bit more crummy, which is what we want. Okay, perfect. Now, all I have to do is take a pan, any type of frying pan, and you warm it up. You put it on high. You wait till it gets obviously hot. I wouldn't put it in cold. Okay. Just gonna wash my hands. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna wait for the pan to get hot. And I'm gonna take my apples and spatula. Also, I like to take a fresh cinnamon stick also. Just one cinnamon stick, put it in. I love cinnamon sticks. I make teas and I put fresh cinnamon sticks, anise, all different types of herbs and spices, ginger, and I make nice teas. Okay, so this is pretty hot, so we're gonna pour this in, and it has like a nice sizzle. And now you're just gonna cook the apples until they get nice and soft. Smells amazing. You don't want to walk away either from sauteing the apples because they do cook pretty fast. And if you walk away for like about a minute, you'll see that the syrupy consistency will start to stick to the pan. So you just want to constantly just move it. If you want to get fancy, you could put a little brandy in here. It'll definitely give a nice rich taste to the cobbler, or bourbon, or any kind of aromatic type of alcohol. So I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to actually put a little bit of bourbon. So I have a little bourbon here. I'm just going to put a little bit. Just be careful when you're putting in any kind of alcohol when you're frying or sauteing things, because when something is hot and you put alcohol in the pan, it will flame in your face. It's happened to me before. So just be careful. Always do things slowly. So now the bourbon is mixing in with the sugar and the cornstarch and the apples. And it smells absolutely delicious. And again, this is vegan. I know a lot of people are doing vegan diets. So this This is almost ready. So we've got to stir for about 3 to 4 minutes. You kind of want to just look at the consistency too. Kind of get like a nice syrupy consistency. If it's too watery, you know it's not ready yet. And also the apples will cook. The apples will also cook in the oven, but it's nice to make them soft here on the stove and just incorporate them nicely. It smells so good. And especially if you're putting in bourbon or any kind of alcohol, you really want to cook that through well on the stove. I cook with a lot of different types of alcohol. I find that it enhances the food tremendously, and it's also fun. So these caramelized really nice. And now you don't need any type of special really baking pan or apple pie pan. I have like a little dish that I'm going to put it in and bake it. So this is almost done. I like to try it too because sometimes you might want to add a little more sugar but it tastes really good. And again, you don't have to put the bourbon. That's just a fancy step. So these are nice and caramelized. Now I'm going to take this little dish that I have and I'm going to just pour in nicely the apples. Now if you don't want to do an apple kind of cobbler or a crumb, you can make an apple pie. All you need is really just the crust. If anyone needs a crust recipe, I'm happy to send them one. But this is just quick. Crusts take a little bit more time, and so I take this stick out. And now we have the apples in here. And then we start to crumb them. So we're gonna just lightly put all over the apples. I do like to bake, but it's not really my favorite specialty. I love cooking Greek cuisine, Italian cuisine. I'm getting into Asian now. You want to crumble them up small, and you'll see once this comes out of the oven, it's going to rise. Really nice. My oven is ready. So since the apples are really somewhat cooked, really we're just going to be cooking the dough that's on top. It doesn't take that much time in the oven. I'd say like 15-20 minutes. I put the oven at 375. So we're just going to put this as a crumb. Or it's really a cobbler. A crumb would be very, very crummy. I wish I had vanilla ice cream. This would be amazing with vanilla ice cream. So, put this. And now, don't waste the cinnamon stick that I took out. I put it in the middle. It actually makes it look really pretty. And then I like to also take just a little bit of cinnamon, just a little pinch, and just sprinkle it lightly as a garnish on top of the cinnamon stick. For all my spices, I like to put them in all little jars. So this is how it looks, and now we're going to put it in the oven for about 15 minutes. So now that's cooking. When it's ready, I'll show you the results.